Hey, this what up, RG? These are my 24/7 HH King bars. I remember way back when my dad bought me my first rap album, in fact. Still remember riding in a white minivan in the backseat, rapping on almost every track. Wasn't long for a young Jay hit the stage. Fast forward a couple years, things not the same. Mama never tell me that she mad or ashamed, but her face say she afraid that her boy changed. Okay, let me get a minute, ma. Let me tell you how my life is like a cinema. Look, I want the world to see all of my hidden flaws, cause behind the facade, we all similar. So that's an unreleased verse that I wrote out of frustration and out of just feeling like I was neglecting a lot of who I was and what I was feeling just to fit into this box or these rules that they had for me as a Christian. And I think that's a very common thing within our space as being a Christian and in hip hop. A lot of times we forget that there's a real world going on as we're living. And so for me, I was like, you know what, let me just speak about it. Let me just say something. And so we'll see what people say. I was just sitting at home and just thinking about, for me, I was a only child from like since I was born to 10. And you know, my parents always had this kind of high standard of me because I was, you know, grew up in a Christian household. And for me, I was like, I felt like trapped in this like idea of what I had to be versus who I really was and all the mistakes I've done. You know, just growing up in that space, you know, you always gotta, growing up Christian in a Spanish household, like if anybody knows, it's very strict. You always, you know, you gotta follow the rules. But for me, it was like, at one point when I started growing up and, you know, taking this faith as my own, I started to realize how much how much bigger God was to me outside of religion. I smoked weed some and I drink once in a while. I got secrets nobody else know about, and I don't really cuss cause that ain't for me. But sometimes I really wanna say the police feel like they're killing innocents for the hell of it, separating kids from their parents cause they immigrants, looking at my brother Ferris like a terrorist. Every time we talk about it, they call it irrelevant. I don't wanna talk about it no more. But these young kids scared of the popo, and the fake love feel like a low blow. That's enough to get the kid going loco. That's like 3 whole issues that we could talk about for days, you know. Whether it's like the, you know, all the unjust killings, all the immigration stuff, and the relationship the U.S. has with like the Islam community. Like it's so much, it's so heavy. When I say every time we talk about it, they call it irrelevant. Like I only mention each thing, you know, briefly. But even me saying that, there's people who are gonna be like, yo, why are you saying this? Like, why don't you just stick to, you know, making a song that makes this turn up? I don't plan to be this activist, or I don't plan to be anything but myself. And so part of me is somebody who's gone through, you know, my family being separated because of immigration, and somebody who's gone through. And for me, that's my reality. My dad's still in Mexico right now. Got deported when I was 16. But at this point, I've realized how many people, not just I represent, but anybody who's in a position of influence. Like, when you think about it, it's 7 billion people in this world. One thing you're going through, there's 1,000 other people that's going through the same thing. So for me, being able to have this platform, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna talk about what I'm going through because it's somebody else that needs to hear that they're not alone. I remember when I started making music, I mean, my parents are the reason why I'm basically here. My mom was like selling tamales just to pay for my first project. My dad was taking on extra work and construction just to help me pay for that. And eventually, I mean, they got me my laptop, and I started making beats and stuff, and I am where I am now because of them. And so for me to speak about these things and, you know, my culture and, you know, immigration and all these things, it's not like forced. It's who I am. I'd be neglecting a huge part of me if I didn't accept, you know, all the struggles and everything that we've gone through. I think somebody needs to know. I think something I've realized recently is just our the power of our words and the power of influence. For me, getting to meet the people that listen to our music face to face and being able to see how much, how much joy the music brings to them, or how much a certain line or a certain song has helped them, is enough to see, like, yo, okay, this is what I'm doing right now holds weight. And I think it's something we all should see, whether we're artists, whether we're whatever profession we're in. I think we need to realize how much we could do and say for somebody else with our art and with our crafts. And so for me, writing this verse, it was like, I gotta speak on what's important to me and what could help somebody else and be a voice. I think a lot of times we forget that we're not the only ones going through something. For one thing that happened to you, there's 20 other people that gone through the same thing. So I'm just like, let's talk. When I talk about looking at my brother Ferris like a terrorist, like, one of my closest friends is Muslim, and he gets looks all the time just because of how he looks. Once you start to see that, you start realizing, like, all these real issues going on are also something God cares about. And so for me, being a son of immigrants, I could see it through a different lens now, and just understand other people and understand other people's struggles, even when I haven't gone through the same thing. So when I talk about, like, my Muslim friends being, like, judged, and when I talk about the senseless killings, like, these aren't things that necessarily happen to me or my community, but I can sympathize with them because of what I've gone through and what I understand in my lens. So these are real things going on right now that we can't neglect as a culture, as a space. Wherever we are, we can't neglect reality and what's happening to people around us. So that's just where I'm at.